Here's a deal. We can give you back a face, you will eat again and smile again, but it won't be your old face, and it won't quite be anyone's. You will look in a mirror for years and see a stranger, and the drugs that keep this new face attached will, one day, be what ends your life. In 2005, Isabelle Dinoire took that deal. She was the first human ever to do it. This is what it cost her, and whether it was worth it, medicine still can't say. To understand that deal, go back to one ordinary night in 2005 in the north of France. Isabelle Dinoire was 38, a mother of two, and one evening in May, after a long stretch of personal trouble, she took some pills to help her sleep. She slept far more deeply than she meant to. While she was unconscious, her dog mauled her face, and she felt none of it. When she woke on her sofa the next morning, there was blood, and a strange numbness, and a mirror. Her nose was gone. Her lips were gone. Her chin was gone. The lower half of her face had been taken away. Months later, in a hospital in the city of Amiens, surgeons would try to give it back, in the first face transplant ever performed on a living human being. But here is the question the whole story turns on. A surgeon can rebuild a hand from spare parts. A face is not a hand. A face is the thing other people use to know that you are you. So the deepest question was never whether the surgery would work. It was this: when it was finished, whose face would Isabelle see staring back? For decades, the idea of moving one person's face onto another lived only in horror films. The reason was not the stitching, it was the mind. In Britain, the Royal College of Surgeons had studied the idea and effectively said, no, not yet. A face was too tied to who you are, they argued, and the danger to the patient's mind was too great and too unknown. So the world assumed that if this ever happened, it would happen in some great hospital in London or America. After years of preparation, it did not. It happened in Amiens, a modest city in the north of France, led by two surgeons most people had never heard of. The lead was a maxillofacial surgeon named Bernard Devauchel. Beside him was Jean-Michel Dubernard, who years earlier had helped perform the world's first hand transplant. And Dubernard, of all people, knew the real danger. Because that first hand transplant had failed in a way nobody expected. The body had accepted the hand. The patient's mind had not. And in the end, he begged to have it removed. So these were men who already understood the thing the public would miss. The deepest risk here was never that Isabelle's body would reject the new face. It was that Isabelle herself might. For a donor, they turned to a woman in her 40s, declared brain dead, whose family agreed to a final and almost unimaginable gift. The donor had taken her own life, and Isabelle would later write that knowing this gave her a strange sense of sisterhood with the stranger whose face she would carry. The plan was to lift the lower face, the nose, the lips, and the chin, and graft it onto Isabelle, along with the donor's own bone marrow to help fight off rejection. No one had ever transplanted a human mouth and nose. They are the hardest parts of all. On November 27, 2005 in Amiens, the operation began. It lasted about 15 hours. Connecting a face is microscopic work. The surgeons had to join tiny blood vessels one by one so that warm blood would flow into the donated tissue and keep it alive. They had to link nerves with the hope, but not the promise, that feeling might one day return. They settled the donor's nose and lips and chin onto the raw lower half of Isabelle's face, and they waited to see if it would take. It did. When Isabelle woke, she became the first living person in history to carry the face of another human being, and the world lost its mind. Reporters poured toward Amiens from every continent. Two surgeons no one had heard of were suddenly on every front page on Earth. A few months later, Isabelle sat in front of a wall of cameras for her first press conference. With lips that had belonged to a dead woman, she lifted a cup, and she drank from it, and she spoke quietly, and she thanked the surgeons, and she thanked her donor. By every visible measure, it had worked. But a transplanted face, like any transplanted organ, is an intruder. Your immune system has one job: find whatever is not you and destroy it. And it does not pause to ask whether the thing it is attacking happens to be your new face. From the first days, Isabelle's body began trying to reject it. About a month in, the tissue flared into open revolt. Roughly a year later, it happened again. Each time, the doctors fought it back with powerful drugs that shut her immune system down, drugs she would now have to take for the rest of her life. And slowly, the function came back. Within months, she could eat solid food again. She could speak more clearly. On the first anniversary of the surgery, her doctors announced something that sounded like pure triumph. Isabelle could smile. But away from the cameras, there was a second struggle that no drug could touch. When Isabelle looked in the mirror, she had expected to see something close to her old self. She did not. The reflection was not quite her. And it was not quite the donor either. It was someone else, someone new, and she could not always recognize her. Years later, she would put it into words that are almost unbearably honest. "It takes an awful lot of time," she said, "to get used to someone else's face." So the surgery worked. The world called it a miracle. And you might think the story ends there, with a woman handed her face back. It doesn't. Because the new face was never going to stay quietly in place. And the question of who Isabelle now was had not been answered. It had only begun. For the rest of her life, the war went on under the surface. Her body never fully stopped trying to throw off the face, so she never stopped taking the drugs that held it on. And those same drugs, as we will see, were quietly doing something else. But first, the part that truly worked. Isabelle learned to live behind the new face. She ate, she spoke, she went out in public. She even brought home another dog. Around the world, surgeons watched what Amiens had done, and they followed. In the years after, a small number of other people, fewer than 50 in total, received faces of their own, partial and full, after burns and gunshots and accidents. The thing that had lived only in horror films was now real medicine. Isabelle Dinoire had opened a door that no one before her had dared to walk through. And now the truth about what was on the other side. Remember the question we started with? When it was finished, whose face would she see in the mirror? Here is the answer, and it is stranger than the films ever guessed. The films always imagined that a face transplant steals an identity, that you take off one person and put on another, and walk around wearing a dead stranger's face. That is not what happened to Isabelle. The new nose and lips and chin settled onto the structure of her own face, and the result looked like neither woman, not the donor, and not the Isabelle who existed before. The surgery did not turn her into someone else. It made a third face, a person who had never existed until that operating room in Amiens. She did not become the donor. She became someone new. And that is why, for years, the woman in the mirror was a stranger she had to slowly, painfully learn to call herself. And then there is the cost. Those drugs, the ones holding the new face in place, the ones she could never stop taking. A body with its defenses switched off cannot always stop other things from growing. In her final years, Isabelle developed cancer twice, and her doctors linked it to the very drugs that had kept her face alive. On the 22nd of April 2016, Isabelle Dinoire died. She was 49 years old. The first face transplant in history had worked, and the price of it, paid quietly over 10 years, was her life. Today, surgeons who perform these operations choose their words with great care. They call a face transplant life-enhancing. They are careful never to call it life-saving. 20 years after Amiens, medicine still has not agreed on whether it is worth the trade. So go back to the deal we offered you at the very start, a face, to eat and smile and walk down a street again, in exchange for a lifetime of drugs, a shortened life, and years of meeting a stranger in the mirror. Isabelle Dinoire is the one human being who truly had to answer that. She said yes, and she never once said she was sorry that she did. The only question she left for the rest of us is quieter and harder. If it had been your face, would you have taken the deal?